welcome in everybody to another edition here of the Auburn Undercover podcast, Auburn Undercover YouTube channel. Nathan King joined here by Jason Caldwell. And Jason, as Hugh Freeze put it today, we've wrapped up camp. He said the second and final scrimmage of the preseason is the official end to camp for the team. Of course, now they're going to get into their first full week of classes, so you've transitioned from what is, quote, fall camp into actual preseason practices. This is when they're going to start cutting things down, getting scout teams ready. He talked about travel team today.
Yep.
It's getting close. We're now inside 2 weeks. Really, we're looking at 250 right now. Just about 2 weeks from now, they'll be playing football right there inside the stadium against UMass. And so, Jason, we'll start with the quarterbacks, of course. Going to go over what we heard and learned from today's scrimmage inside Jordan-Hare. This is the first scrimmage, of course, the only one with Peyton Thorne as the starter. Going back a few days to Hugh Freeze's announcement, he said, this is a big reason why I decided to do this. Yes, Peyton Thorne won the job. He said they track everything. Obviously, there's lots of calculations involved. He did win the job on the field. But also, he said, I want to see him run this first-team offense without those shackles, without feeling like, I got to try to win the job. I got to go out there every day. Now he's the guy. Now he's got that title to him. And he said he did see that from him today. And I think it showed up mostly what he was talking about, early mistakes by Peyton Thorne, but he didn't press after that. He kind of just was able to chill out and continue to run the offense. And by all accounts, he had a pretty good day in his first scrimmage as a starter.
Yeah, and I think that's what you would expect when you're going against this defense, especially this secondary. You're going to make some throws that you probably shouldn't make, and I think some of that is going, hey, take a few chances here or there, but obviously settled in. I mean, obviously everybody can see it, and if you haven't seen it yet, a ball to Shane Hooks that goes up and gets one-handed, a couple of big throws down the field. And so I think, once again, you look at Peyton Thorne, a guy that's been the steadiest of the guys, had a couple of mistakes today, but again, you're not going to be perfect in the quarterback, and it's also probably good to let you know, hey, here's where I'm at. Maybe I can take this chance at times, maybe not at other times, and so that's a big part of playing quarterback. So an important day as they continue to get on the same page with those wide receivers too, and it's time to get those reps in. They got some of those reps today, and Nathan, Peyton Thorne steps up, and then we hear more about Robbie Ashford continuing to push.
Yep.
And I thought there were some very interesting comments from Hugh Freeze about Ashford today.
Yeah, he said if Robbie Ashford continues to play like this in practice, Peyton's going to have to play really well. Meaning, this thing's still close. I mean, he definitely cut off the reps. Again, that was a big reason for this, was saying we need somebody who's going to get all the first-team reps. You can't keep splitting stuff around. We knew back at SC Media Days, said, hey, about practice 10, they're going to need to cut this thing. That's exactly what he did. But that doesn't mean the competition's over. It's going to keep going into the season. And, he said so many times, I think this is purposeful. You kind of put these things out there to push a player a little bit, to poke him. He said 3 or 4 times on Thursday, we'll see how Robbie responds to this. I think that was very purposeful.
Yep.
Kind of saying, hey, I'm challenging you to go out there and respond the right way. We were out there all day Thursday, at the entire practice
really
pretty
good
much.
Day.
And
really
yeah,
good day.
Excellent day watching practice, but Ashford had a great day.
Yep.
Out there, him and Thorne were just as good that day. Ashford had a good day in the stadium today as well. Hugh Freeze said these 3 practices since Peyton Thorne has been made the starter are probably Ashford's best practices of the preseason. That's exactly what you want from your backup quarterback.
That's it.
All indications are that Robbie's getting better at throwing the ball still, and so while this is something where I think the offense is still best positioned with Peyton Thorne, that's obviously the conclusion the coaching staff came to. Again, when you have Robbie Ashford's ability to create with his legs and being an improved passer, he's still giving them lots of things to think about, which is a great position to be in, especially since you kind of get the season started off on a lighter note, maybe with a team that you've got a pretty good chance to win heavily against.
Yeah, and it may be a situation where we may ought to change the way we phrase this too. Instead of saying backup, we almost say number 2 more than backup, because Robbie Ashford is going to play if he continues this. And we talked about it, that there's going to be a plan or package for him. I don't think that necessarily means what it's meant in the past, where it was one play.
Yeah,
you
run the Wildcat.
No. I don't think that's what this is about with Robbie Ashford. I think he's shown enough that they're like, well, we're going to get this guy involved, and it's going to be more than, hey, one random play. There'll be some of those, I think, but there's also going to be an offensive system, I think, in some things for Robbie Ashford down the road too. So interesting to see the quarterbacks. I think Holden Gerner as well. They've all improved. They've all taken steps. Competition's been a big part of that, and that's happening at other places as well around this team.
So Robbie Ashford didn't turn the ball over today. You're looking at now 1 combined turnover by all the quarterbacks through both scrimmages. That's something Hugh Freeze said today as we move forward and talk about the running game a little bit. He said, look, we don't know everything about our offense right now. They probably know less than 50% of their identity at the moment, because you're obviously still working through those things, but they know they can run the ball and they know they're not turning it over. And Hugh Freeze said, look, that's a pretty basic calculation there of things that work pretty well for not only his offenses in the past, but that's a good combination for just about any offense. Let's talk about the wide receivers you mentioned. Shane Hooks, Camden Brown's name continues to pop up now that he's back healthy.
Yep.
Hugh Freeze said last week, look, he's basically been injured ever since I got here. He had the ankle injury in the spring. Now he's dealing with a hamstring issue. He got on the field more this week. Did catch a touchdown, so I believe now that we look at it, there's 4 passing touchdowns. I think 2 for Shane Hooks, 1 for Cam Brown, and one for Damari Alston out of the backfield. And so Shane Hooks had a great day. I think going back to Thursday, we were talking about it some today, 11 and 13. I don't know if they're going to be your two, looking forward, I don't know if you maybe want to predict them to be the 2 most prolific pass catchers on the team. Those are 2 guys that the quarterbacks definitely feel comfortable throwing.
They're going to be the guys that I think are going to be targeted the most for sure. I think when you start thinking about Shane Hooks, Rivaldo Fairweather, tight end, those are going to be guys that are going to get involved in the passing game. And yeah, you're right. We've seen kind of the evolution of that coming through camp. We saw more Camden Brown. We're hearing more about him because some of that's because Nick Mardner is a guy that has done some pretty good things so far. Wasn't able to go into scrimmage today. Yep. Camden Brown comes back at the right time. It opens the door for him now, and so we'll see if Camden Brown can make a move. We've heard a lot of Jay Fair early on. Now we're hearing more of the bigger, more physical body guys at this wide receiver. Still Caleb Burton a little bit too. So it's an evolving wide receiver group, and now that you can start, you mentioned starting to work towards an opponent. Now you start to can fine-tune things. Okay, what are we doing the best? Right now you're kind of throwing everything against a wall. Now what do you do the best? What do you want to do against this defense? You can start to fine-tune and focus a little bit. That'll help the passing game. Yeah, and you said it this morning when we were hanging out here before or during the scrimmage. It might be more of a pass-heavy day today that you already know you can run the ball. We did hear a bunch of good runs, from Damari Alston. Jeremiah Cobb had a good day. I think he maybe had more opportunities in this second scrimmage than he did in the first one, but I think this was a little bit more of, hey, Peyton Thorne, you're comfortable. Robbie, we want to see that you can continue to throw the ball well. Let's get out there and air it out. And you mentioned Nick Mardner has I believe it's an undisclosed injury. I don't think we know the exact nature of it. Wasn't able to go today. Malcolm Johnson, still not able to go with that shoulder injury. Coy Moore has the ankle injury. So those are a couple guys in a deep receiver rotation right now. Free said it on the radio yesterday. He said, look, we don't really know where they fit right now because they haven't been able to practice. They did run the ball well. Hugh Freeze said today he, as usual, has a difficult time coming away from any of this stuff overly positive because if the offense does something well, that means you've got defensive issues to fix. And right now he said, look, the only way we're going to find out if we can stop the run well is if we start doing it against opponents, because I think they are pretty confident at this point. Look, Damari Alston continues to impress. I think they're pretty confident how they can run the ball this season between Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, and then you've got a couple more guys in there as well. Very deep running back group. The people that you're seeing Jeremiah Cobb for the first time, maybe a little surprised at what they see. I've been watching that guy do it for 3 years. Not surprised at all. Jeremiah Cobb's a talented guy. He's going to be a really good player for Auburn. Maybe this year, but down the road for sure. Running game is there in part because of the improvement on the offensive line too. We've heard about those guys, and something we wrote about this week.
A few times.
Hugh Freeze talked about today. Too tall. Isaiah Miller is a guy that has now wedged his way into maybe one of the top 5 positions on this team. You're always looking for your best 5 offensive linemen. Too tall may be one of those guys now. And first it was a competition, maybe a right tackle. That competition may slide inside to guard even more. Nathan, Gunnar Britton has seen some time at left guard. Even took some snaps today in this week in practice. Too tall is a guy that has come on like gangbusters, and that's a good problem to have on the offensive line.
6'5", 320 pounds. We knew that he had an SEC-ready frame, but he's a guy he's been Jake Thornton's guy for years now because he was committed to him at Ole Miss, number 4 JUCO offensive tackle in the country. He was elated to get him to follow him to Auburn. We had been hearing about how good of an offseason we had, but you're kind of, a JUCO player. How long is it going to take him to get ready to be, he's got an SEC-ready body. How ready is he to be an SEC player? It seems like that time is now. Over the past couple, a massive surge for him the past couple weeks to where Hugh Freeze said it today. We can't keep him off the field. He is now become a player where let's figure out how we can move other guys, and that's what we were talking about today. Is it has nothing to do with the other guys not being good.
Correct.
It has nothing to do with Gunnar Britton has lost the job at right tackle. Nothing to do with that.
It has nothing to do with the guys that guard either. It has nothing to do with their play. It's because Too Tall has been that much better, and a guy they feel like is prepared and is now ready to be one of those guys. So it's a great problem to have, but it just adds more depth to an offensive line group that continues to grow. We've heard Jaden Muskrat. We've seen Dylan Senda a little bit. Obviously, Cam Stutz at right guard. They've moved Jalil Irvin around a little bit. We've seen Connor Liu play some guard now.
Irvin at tackle the other day.
Obviously you look at Jeremiah Wright on the left side, Tate Johnson on the left side. There, all of a sudden now you're building a little depth on this offensive line for a group that has performed pretty well to this point. That's big heading into a season.
You've been seeing it throughout your career. I think by now I need to stop being surprised about this stage in the preseason. I think every team starts to do this where you're let's move these guys around. Like, is he a guard? Is he a tackle? It's like we just want the best 10 offensive linemen.
And you're trying to find what your options are in the inevitable case there are injuries. This offensive line, it's going to happen. And so how are you prepared for this move? How are you prepared for this move? Obviously, Jaden Muskrat's a guy that can play in multiple spots now. Gunnar Britton's a guy that can play in multiple spots. So it helps you to be prepared, gives you more depth, and gets you ready for a season.
Opposite line of scrimmage, as we'll run through a couple defensive takeaways. Two of the most explosive players on this defensive front need to get healthy.
Yeah.
Keldrick Falk was not able to go today. It sounded like
he was close.
It sounded like he was close to it. We were talking to some people. He ran through warm-ups, it seemed like, and then Free said he tried to scrimmage but couldn't. Obviously, he's had that wrist issue going all the way back to when he was a senior in high school. And then Jalen McLeod, who has maybe been one of the best players on this entire defense, sort of a revelation for them at that pass rusher spot. We saw him with his ankle taped up at practice the other day. Wasn't able to go in the team stuff, offense versus defense stuff. So maybe you're talking about two players that are in the same sort of situation. Hey, they can run through stuff individually, but when it's
at this point, get them to the season.
Exactly. Those are two of your most important players on defense. And you mentioned this secondary. It was Nehemiah Pritchett who had that interception against Peyton Thorne. We know Jalen Simpson had a great pass breakup there. Those are guys that Freeze admitted today. He said they know how good they are, and maybe in the first couple weeks of practice, I think coasting was the word. They were just kind of knowing what they had.
Because there's not a lot of competition in the secondary in terms of who's going to be starters. When you think about Nehemiah Pritchett, DJ James, Keontae Scott, Jalen Simpson, Zion Puckett, you feel like those five guys, because of their experience, because of what they've done and talent, that's a group that it's going to be hard for one of those young guys to knock them off. What they've seen, though, is they've picked it up in the intensity. We saw that Thursday. We saw
with
they had
Simpson at the end.
Serious 11-on-11 work. And from folks we talked to, we saw a lot of it that day. That's been every day. Luke Deal told me the other day, look, we've done a lot more 11-on-11. They did that on Saturday with situational things. They put the defense with their back to the wall, put the offense back on their own 2-yard line. They're putting these guys in situations to then go out and make plays. And now it's a matter of which young guys. We've heard Kay and Lee. Obviously there's Donovan Kaufman, an older guy that's there, Marquise Gilbert, some older guys. Which of those young guys, especially at corner, can become the next group? That's probably another one of those questions on defense.
Right, because Kay and Lee is going to have a good opportunity there. Shoot, I'm interested to see between him and J.D. Rim, who ends up taking that 3rd/4th corner spot, because Rim, that leg, we saw him in a non-contact the other day. That leg is still kind of bothering him. And he was obviously a guy who came on once Jalen Simpson moved to safety last year. But Kai and Lee has been a guy that, look, they're telling him, you're not a freshman. Like, that's what Wes McGriff said. He said, you are not included in this group of, Hugh Freeze said, quote, young puppies.
Yeah.
He's not included in that group and that just goes to show how important the spring is. And so, Jason, we'll get into it now next week. It's going to feel even more like a game week, really, because of the classes now, them having their schedules and being back in, for the fall semester. Next week is going to be what the rest of the season looks like, I think, in terms of their practice schedule, in terms of what it looks like.
Yep, I think so too. And now, as he said, probably the most important thing now for this team is to get some of those yellow jersey guys back on defense.
Yep.
Whether it's Keldrick Falk, McLeod, whether
Austin
Austin Keys, get, especially in that front 6, front 7, get some of those guys back so they can start to build a little continuity as they get into game plan mode. So I'm sure that's going to be the focus for them. A couple of scrimmages in the books now. Got some work done today. Some positives they continue to build towards year number 1 under Hugh Freeze.
With every passing day, it starts to feel more like football season. Definitely does with all the Tiger Transits running around. So appreciate you guys for joining us today. For Jason Caldwell, Nathan King. We'll talk to you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.